The tree was meant to thrive. It started out as a tiny seed and grew in strength in spite of the odds it braved. There were days of drought, days of rain, days of de-weeding, and days of pain. But the tree continued to stand with its roots deep in the Word, and it whispered, "Let faith arise." It all began with a dream that dropped from heaven into the hearts of an unassuming couple, making a small family of 3 move base in the year 2009. Manoj and Lindsay, along with little Eva, moved to Bangalore with a vision to reach young people. The seed sprouted to life with a small Bible study group for young adults, and alongside arrived their second baby girl, Zara. With 2 things on their hearts, food and ministry, they took a step of faith to formally register Mustard Ministries a year later. Mustard Cafe was birthed, complete with a Christian store and a studio. The excitement, however, faded a bit when they were forced to shut shop 2 months later because of an unforeseen opposition by the local authorities. Discouraged and upset, but bound to the hope in Christ, the giver of their dream, they moved ahead. That, however, wasn't the only heartbreak that they were to experience that year. On the personal front, eagerly awaiting the arrival of their 3rd baby girl in August of the same year, they met with a setback they had never expected. Zoe lived for only 8 hours and 40 minutes after being born because of a fatal condition. That was the most painful experience and indefinitely a huge turning point in their lives. Struggling in their inexpressible grief, they clung to Jesus, their only assurance and comfort during this season of their lives. Looking back now, they see they did not bear that sorrow alone. Spent yet strengthened, they continued holding on to the anchor of their souls and serve only Him. Their love for people and devotion to Christ saw them becoming ordained as pastors in the church they attended. Eventually, the Mustard Dream found a new lease of life when the cafe reopened 2 years later in 2014, becoming a place of togetherness, warmth, and great food. Though they lost their physical baby, their spiritual family tree was growing beyond their expectations, with the mandate to restore, rebuild, and renew people's lives. They formed several sub-ministries catering to specific needs of the people under the banner of Mustard Ministries. These range from ministry for teens to individual counseling, weekly prayer intercessions to parenting and marriage workshops, and more. All the while pouring their hearts into nurturing every story with great care and directing them toward their God potential and gifting. Though their ministry to people flourished and lives were being impacted all around, they themselves were in a financial drought. The word God gave them in their heart for the cafe business was expansion, but they could only see a depletion. Struggling to comprehend the ways and workings of God, they put aside the grasp of business logic and financial understanding and plugged into the limitless expanse of what God was speaking to them in their famine. God led them to Genesis 26, where the Lord asked Isaac to stay in the land of famine and to abort his plan to go to Egypt. He obeys and in the same year reaps 100-fold. They stood firm where God had planted them, holding on to His prophetic promise. God's favor and miracle appeared in season. Mustard received an unexpected opportunity to open up a branch cafe on the IIM campus in Bangalore. Expansion indeed. The adventure in their lives continued with sudden twists and turns, with God being their sole navigator. Expansion was not just a word in their business. Manoj and Lindsay were on their way to eventually step down as pastors at APC and move into a totally unfamiliar territory, alongside Mustard Cafe and the now burgeoning Mustard Ministries. They were led to begin in their own home a humble fellowship, A church called Kainos, meaning new in the context that this small church will be, as prophesied in the Bible for the last days, a place of new wine as they become new wineskins. However, on the cafe business front, the famine seemed to continue and they were now holding on by the threads. It had been 8 long years since the first cafe opening. The second branch had taken in all they had saved till then. Come 2019 and they faced the toughest year yet. Hope seemed distant, faith began to dwindle. Exhausted of all their savings, mounted with debt, filled with questions, and in the pit of waiting, with many a personal sacrifice, it came crashing down on them like a cloudburst. And yet, nothing moved. They cried out to their only hope, their God. They were done with. At their 0 point, when there wasn't anything left to do, after years of wait came a moment of suddenly, just as God had promised. The cumbersome debt was rolled off their backs in a matter of days as God finally brought in their much-awaited season of provision, of fulfillment, and overflow. Divine connections were in progress and God prepared them for even more. Amazingly, the church Kainos had blossomed as well and moved out from their home and into a larger space. A church without banners or a website was surprisingly filling out. God was on the move. Come 2020, as the world plunged into a lockdown, Mustard arose with new vigor as they zoomed all their ministries online. The tree was reaching far and wide as people came flocking in from all across the country and the world. Mustard had been made ready for a time such as this. As the branches grew, they swept over the nation as a shade from the brutality and the hopelessness of the times. People, regardless of their denomination and age, came together to pray and intercede for the land and people. In the online Global Hour of Prayer, the children's ministry saw little ones from different parts of the globe marching into Mustard to be equipped and taught in the Word. A fortnightly online publication called Roar began carrying precious prophetic revelations and teachings to the people of God. Couples on the brink of separation walked into the Mustard Marriage Workshop and found themselves revived and encouraged once again. Worship spread out as a lovely fragrance across the nation as the mandate to rebuild the broken altar of David tugged at their heartstrings. And they created an online platform called Rebuilding the Altar for people to come together and just worship the Lord uninterrupted. In the pandemic, the ministry touched people across 53 cities of India and 15 countries globally. What a rising! It wasn't just the ministry this time. For the first time in 8 years, the Mustard Cafe business saw a profit they hadn't ever seen in the past. And here we are today, celebrating and praising the faithful God, the master planner of it all. All of last decade was one where God laid the foundations, the roots went in deep. This now is a season of glory, of stepping up and taking off. Mustard hasn't arrived, it has only just begun.